What's going on, guys? We are live. It's Frank with Linemaker Sports here. So I'm going to coach you guys through some stuff that might help you this weekend, and will basically show you exactly what you could be looking for that could help you win some more bets. All right, so if you guys got any questions, any comments, make sure you guys throw that down in the comment section. We're going to go through and talk about some stuff for this weekend and how line movement can correlate with what you should be looking at for this weekend. And I'm going to kind of use some examples from this weekend to show you, because the weekends can be very hectic. There could be a lot of games going on, just like this weekend. You got college football, college basketball, NFL, UFC. You got a lot of stuff going on. So how do you shrink it down? How do you shrink it, down to about just a handful of plays of what you could look further into? Well, you could do that using line movement. All right. So first off, what is line movement? All right, line movement is when you're correlating the odds. All right, the odds from what they opened up at to what they're sitting at. All right, so let's go ahead and put it up here real quick for line movement. So how many of you guys have probably seen, pretty much everybody, you guys probably all should have seen this. Odds when they open up, you'll see like minus 200, minus 110. You'll see spreads, you'll see minus 3.5. Over-unders, you'll see 139.5. College basketball, NFL, you see 47.5 for totals and stuff like that. But you'll see odds next to them as well. Usually the totals and the spreads, you'll see like a minus 120 or a minus 110 next to the odds. So what that is basically those are the odds and how they tell a story. Not a lot of people know this, all right? They don't know that the odds actually tell a story when it comes down to it, all right? So it's very important, because when you're first looking through certain things, you really have to pay attention to the odds. It's almost like the first thing you should be paying attention to. All right, so line movement is like, let's say, for example, on a money line play real quick. All right, let's just say using like UFC this weekend, let's say. All right, you got Dominic Reyes, he's fighting this weekend. Let's kind of use an example there. He opened up at minus 130. All right, so he opened up at minus 130, and now, right now, as we're talking, the line has shifted. There's been a massive line movement there. He's now minus 210. All right, so what does that tell you? What does that teach us? Like, when we're looking at that, what does it mean? So what it means is that the odds, they started out at minus 130. All right, now they're sitting at minus 210. That's a huge movement. That's like 80-point movement right there. All right, you got to pay attention to stuff like that. So could be, an injury to the guy he's fighting. It could be a bunch of things. All right, this past weekend, or I think it was maybe 2 weekends ago, there's actually a UFC fight that is like under the commission that they're looking into, because there was some weird stuff that happened where the odds on this one fight went from minus 210 to minus 480. It was like minus 480 in a matter of like 15 to 20 to 30 minutes. Now they're looking further into it, because they're thinking that somebody on the inside knew what was going on, that the fighter was injured. So everybody hammered the other fighter, obviously driving those odds up. All right, so when you see a drastic movement like that, it means something. So you got to let the odds teach you. All right, the odds are trying to talk to you when you're looking at them, and not a lot of people most people just bypass the whole thing. They don't even pay attention to that. They pay more attention to what the two teams that are playing, or the two fighters, or they pay attention to that more than they do the odds. The odds tell the story in itself. All right, for example, this weekend, the Bills, for example, if Josh Allen doesn't play, those odds are going to be very drastically different than what it would be if he did play. So the odds will tell you right there. That is correlated into what you're looking at on a daily basis. So when you see a line like this jump this much, like for UFC, for example, where it jumped, this is 80 points right here, all right? That means something. You got to pay attention to that. You got to look further into stuff like that. So what I want you guys to do this weekend is, I want you guys, when you're looking at the full slate of games for college basketball, college football, the NFL, UFC, all that, I want you to go through and I want you to circle the biggest line movements that you see. Now, that should trim down a lot of your stuff. That should trim it down to, I'd say over the whole weekend, should trim it down to about, instead of having like 150 games, should trim it down to like 20 or 30 games. So where you can dive a little bit more into and actually pay more attention to, all right? Because it's very important. This is something that goes overlooked in the sports betting industry, and people don't even pay attention to it. Like I said, mostly people pay attention to the odds. They pay attention to the two teams. They pay attention to the two teams that are playing, or when there's a baseball game, they pay attention to the pitchers. They don't pay attention to the odds. The odds are the first thing you should be looking at. Screw the teams. Who cares who's playing? Look at the odds. That's what we're trying to pay attention to, all right? That's high-level sports betting. All right, and also, if you guys want to learn more about high-level sports betting, go down below in the description and book a call, all right? So you can work with me one-on-one. I can teach you guys this stuff all day long, all right? So let's get into a little bit more. Another thing I want to talk about is let's talk about the spread now. So college football this weekend, Tennessee is going against Missouri. All right, so Tennessee right now, they opened up, all right? They opened up at minus 16 and a half. All right, they opened up minus 16 and a half. Now they're sitting at minus 20 and a half. All right, so this is on the spread. So check it out. They opened up at 16 and a half. Now they're at 20 and a half. What does that tell us? It tells us there's a major amount of money being put on Tennessee because they've moved that mark about 4 points on the spread. It takes a lot of money to do that. So you got to pay attention to that. All right, you got to pay attention to stuff like that. That's how you look at the spread. You know, like I showed you guys the money line. Well, this is how you look at the spread. That's how you pay attention to that stuff. And then on the totals, it's the same thing. The totals, you pay the same attention. Like, let's say for the NBA, game opens up at 220. Now it's sitting at 225. Why is that happening? Now you got to look into it a little bit more and see exactly why that is. All right, so it's very important. This is a very important step just in sports betting. I'm trying to take your sports betting to the next level. This is very important, guys. All right, you cannot bypass this. Every single day you're looking at any gambling aspect of anything, you need to be looking at the odds. You need to be paying attention to the odds. What are the odds trying to tell you? All right, because they tell you where to go as well. All right, just like for this example of Tennessee, this is telling you that you should probably be looking into more of Tennessee on this matchup rather than Missouri because the odds have moved up. The spread has moved up. All right, same thing with UFC here. This is Reyes. All right, we should be looking more into Reyes. Why is Reyes' number? You know, why did he go up 80 points in odds? All right, we got to see what's causing that movement. And that causes you to look more into it and look more into detail. All right, and that's going to make you make better sports bets. All right, it's going to make you win a lot more, trust me. It is going to make you more sharp than rather than the average the public out there that just goes out there and because their favorite team's playing, they bet on them, or because there's a solid pitcher on the mound, they're going to bet him, or because Josh Allen is out now, that we're going to bet the other team. That's your basic stuff. All right, this is more high level stuff that goes overlooked, and not a lot of people even want you to know. All right, so make sure you guys pay attention this weekend when you guys are looking at your full slate of games. Whether, like I said, it does not matter what it is. All right, even horse racing, for example. Horse racing, you need to pay attention to the odds in that too. It's the same thing. The odds are trying to tell you something, and if you pay attention to them, you're going to be on the higher probability side. All right, you're going to be on a side that's going to give you the best shot at winning. All right, rather than just ignoring them. Now, there is plenty of games that don't have line movement. That's why I'm saying that, like, when you go through this weekend and go through all your stuff, that you're going to, there's going to be 150 games plus, all right? Not all of them have line movement. What does that mean? That means that, if the ones that don't have line movement, that means there's not much happening. There's not much going on. You can't really find an edge in those games, all right? Because those games aren't moving. There's nothing going on in them, all right? So those games you just ignore. You don't even look at them. That's what they're a waste of time, all right? And people that tell you, like I said, people tell you you spend 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day looking at games and all that. That is a complete lie. You do not. All you have to do is slim down the amount of games that you need to pay attention to, and those are the games that you dive further into. That's it. That's all it is, guys. That's the key to success when it comes to sports betting. All right? You just pay attention to the odds, and that's it. Like, you pay attention to the odds, and then you look further into detail into those games. That is how you are able to make winning bets and how you're able to hit at a high percentage. All right, your average, like I said, average everyday bettor does not look into that stuff. All they do is just pretty much go out, they grab a parlay ticket, they look at it and they're like, oh, the Bills are a good team, or the Eagles are a good team. The Eagles are 8-0, they're gonna win this weekend too. Boom, then they put them down. That's about it. That's all they look into. All right, and that's why sportsbooks make so much money. All right, sportsbooks don't like people like us. All right, people like us and you that are watching that learn this type of thing. All right, they don't like it because this is how you can actually get an upper hand on them. All right, so next time you guys are looking at a full slate of games, pay attention to the odds, whether it be the money line, for example, in UFC, in NHL, and then your spreads in college football, NFL, college basketball, stuff like that. Pay attention to the spreads, all right? It's very, very important. All right, so we got a comment here with Prime VA 757. You're saying, so with Josh Allen possibly being out, would you go ahead and jump on the Vikes, or could it be a trap? So this goes right into the thing I just pretty much said, as in just because Josh Allen is going to be out does not mean I would jump on the Vikes. All right, that is the reason what they want you to think. They want you to think just because Josh Allen is out that the Vikings are automatically going to win the game. So when that happens, I'm going to tell you right now, I would not even touch the game, to be honest with you. I wouldn't even touch it, all right? There's no reason to even touch it. So that's my advice when it comes really, to that. All right. Kirk is known for having shitty games at the worst times. That's funny. But that is pretty much my take on that. Don't buy the news, guys. That's what it comes to. It's always buying the news. Because Josh Allen is out, you're going to go bet the other team? No. That doesn't fly. That's not how you win. All right, pay attention to the odds. If everything correlates and everything is good, then you can maybe, place a bet in addition to if a lot of things are swaying in the Vikings' way. All right, if that's the case and they're swaying, in Minnesota's favor on top of Josh Allen being out, then maybe, yeah. But not just based off of that. Just because like Josh Allen's out, you don't just play Minnesota just off of a limb because of that. All right, but what I want you to do is I want you to go look at the line movement in that game and see what the line movement is in that game. I can tell you it's probably drastic. I haven't even looked at it, but I can tell you it's probably drastic right now because Josh Allen, it's up in the air. So it probably started out at, Buffalo being a high number that he might play, and now it probably has dropped. I'm just taking that as a guess. All right, pretty much because that's how it rolls when the QB is up in the air, especially when it's a star QB and it's up in the air if they're going to be playing or not. All right, so next time, like I said, this weekend, when you guys are all looking at your slates, make sure you guys pay attention to the line movement. That's the first step. All right, I've said it about 20 times already. So make sure you guys do it, all right, because it's very important. And you might actually be surprised when you slim down the amount of games that you're looking at, the time that you save, not only that, the time that you save, and on top of that, you're going to be able to make higher probability bets, all right? So what I mean by that is, when you're looking at a game, you're thinking, right off the bat, you're probably thinking, it's 50-50, it don't matter. And your average person always says that. It's 50-50, it's a coin flip no matter what happens. In all reality, it's not a coin flip, all right? One team is better than the other, all right? This happens. One fighter is better than the other. That happens, all right? Every single day that happens. So you got to definitely pay attention to that type of stuff, all right? And then we got Joel saying it opened at 8.5 and not at 3.5. All right, so the Bills opened up at 8.5, and now because Josh Allen is up in the air, it dropped to 3.5. So what happened? Everybody went and jumped on the Vikings because they think Josh Allen isn't playing. So just like I told you guys, that's basically what it looks like to see what the public will jump all over the news. They will jump all over it. All right, they will think right away. They will think, oh, we're going to go jump. We're going to bet on Minnesota because Josh Allen is out. Guess what? Buffalo's got no shot. And guess what? Half the time, the team that people think don't have no shot, they end up winning. So, but when it comes to that for this weekend, I probably wouldn't even touch that game, to be honest. All right, because there's so much other stuff going on. Why even think about that? And you guys got to realize this too: is the NFL. The NFL is one of the worst sports to bet on. It's the toughest sport to bet on. Everybody loves to bet on the NFL, but it's one of the worst sports. You only get to play it basically on Sunday. Thursday night you got one game. Monday night you got one game. So you get literally Sunday to try to recoup all your money to make for the whole entire week. So you guys got to know that stuff too. If you're trying to take this stuff serious, you need to know that stuff. You need to know that the NFL is just a little bit of an addition. It's not much. You can't make a living betting off just the NFL. Anybody that tells you that you can is lying because you cannot, all right? You cannot make a living just off of the NFL unless you are betting millions of dollars per game and you are hitting at a very good percentage as well. And you will not because you'll get banned, all right? You will get banned from the sports books if you're betting millions of dollars. And that's another thing that, it comes to is that anybody that shows you they're betting millions of dollars and stuff like that, you can't, guys. You just can't. You get banned. You get banned. The sportsbook will not let you get away with that type of stuff. All right? So that's really what it comes down to. All right, guys? So this weekend, like I said, pay attention to line movement. It could help you. It could make you put yourself on a higher probability side. Back to what I was saying on that note, though, of higher probability, what that means is that pretty much putting yourself at an advantage rather than, a disadvantage, all right? Like I said, everybody thinks a game is 50-50 to start out, but it's really not, all right? There's really not. And there is one team better than the other or one fighter better than the other, but it's your job to figure that out, all right? And the odds can tell you that, all right? So we got Joel said there's line movement in the Dallas-Green Bay game from 2.5 to 4.5, all right? So there you go. Pay attention to it, guys. That's line movement for you right there, all right? Pay attention and see why why is that happening. Look further into that. All right, and see why that movement is happening. Now, you got to pay attention to the NFL because the NFL, when it comes to spreads and stuff like that, you definitely got to pay attention to the numbers there. Because, like, for example, look at that, where it said Dallas and Green Bay, minus 2.5 to minus 4.5. So now, instead of taking a team at minus 2.5, you took them at minus 4.5. You're at a huge disadvantage just of the number there. So you have to watch that. That's a whole nother subject that I got to talk to you guys about. All right, and that'll be at a later date. We'll talk about that, which is key numbers. Because you have to be able to know what key numbers are in the NFL and college football and stuff like that. Pay attention to that stuff could be the difference between winning and losing. All right, that game could be decided by a field goal. Then you take -4.5 and you end up losing. All right, so definitely buy the points and do what you have to do to manipulate lines as well. That's another step, guys. That's what I'm saying. Sports betting is not easy. Sports betting is tough, and it takes a lot of work. It's a grind. All right, it's a grind every single day, and you're not going to win every single day. All right, but I'll try to do my best to help you guys out there, to kind of prep you guys into what it looks like to be, a professional sports bettor and to do this at a high level. But first step, you're going to be paying attention to this line movement that I've been showing you. All right, we'll work at that first. Once you learn line movement, then you're able to see some other stuff that correlates with that. And you can look into exactly why the line has shifted, why the odds have shifted, and stuff like that. So just like I said last weekend, or 2 weekends ago in the UFC, where that line on that fighter jumped from -220 to -480, guess what? The guy that jumped to -480 knocked the other guy out in about, I think it was like 25 or 30 seconds. All right, so something happened there. All right, it gets shady when there's big line movement. It's shady stuff that happens. All right, you want to be on that side, obviously, that wins. So pay attention to that stuff. All right, guys. As always, I'm Frank with Linemaker Sports. I'll see you guys in the next video. Till then, I'm out.